as a catalyst, if I would have understood that I am not the ignition source, I can be, going back to that like fire, triangle, the oxygen, the heat, the fuel. As a catalyst, you can be any of those three things at any given time. And so as you go to approach these problems, challenges, big ideas, big initiatives, let's look around. Who's my oxygen source? Who's my heat source? Who's my fuel source? How do I now take a team and work with them so that together we can make this roaring fire?
Hi, I'm Tracy Lovejoy.
And I'm Shannon Lucas. We are the co-CEOs of Catalyst Constellations, which is dedicated to empowering Catalyst to create bold, powerful change in the world.
This is our podcast, Move Fast, Break Shit, Burnout, where we speak with Catalyst executives about ways to successfully lead transformation in large organizations.
In this season, we speak with Catalyst executives about ways to successfully lead change in large organizations. And I'm thrilled today to have Amy Kaufman with us. Welcome, Amy.
Thank you. Thank you both.
A little bit of background on Amy. As a talent pipeline strategist with over 25 years of experience working across private and public sectors, Amy advises regional intermediaries in aligning cross-sector education and workforce strategies across the talent pipeline from supply to demand. For example, she helped lead a $150 million ongoing investment by the California Governor's Office to develop a skilled workforce to ensure upward social and economic mobility for all Californians. And regionally, she served as the executive director for career pathways at Orange County Department of Education, managing, managing a $15 million statewide investment to align talent development initiatives. She's also an adjunct faculty member for the University of California, focusing on professional development and training on embedding artificial intelligence skill sets across curricula and corporate training. But we're not done yet. She's also got a personal passion in independent filmmaking. Her film Walls won the Best Animation at the 2023 Chelsea Film Festival. Amazing. Thanks for being with us today, Amy.
Yeah, it's great to be reunited with both of you. I really enjoyed our time together when we first met in our class.
Absolutely. And thanks for joining. All right. So in your own words, tell us how you relate to the concept of catalyst, and maybe what does being a catalyst signify for you in a leadership role?
Yep. So when we were in our very first day of class together in the course that I took with Catalyst Constellations, the first question that you asked us was to articulate, what do you think of when you hear the word catalyst? And the first image that came to mind and the first thought that I had was the word fire. And the reason for that is my husband, Mike, is a retired firefighter and engineer with the Anaheim Fire Department in Anaheim, California, go AFD. And the whole concept and science behind fire was something that was always very intriguing to me. And there was a colleague of Mike's who explained to me the science of a fire is this fire triangle. And you need three elements to have a fire. You have to have oxygen, you have to have heat, and you have to have fuel. And so when you asked that question, my first response to myself was, that makes sense. And a catalyst is fuel. But later I'll share with you how that has changed as I've started to understand more the actual science behind being a catalyst leader.
Oh, Tracy.
I'm here. I look forward to hearing more about that, Amy, the science behind it. So we'll get into that.
Yeah.
Now, one thing that we love is to be helping other executive leaders really thinking about, how do we move through these key challenges, specifically in driving transformational leadership. And so would love to have you share one or two major challenges that you have experienced when driving transformation in organizations. What stands out for you as significant hurdles? And let's kind of pull those apart and think about how you've overcome them.
Okay. I want to back up a step to the introduction because I would be remiss while I appreciated the level of elevation about working with the governor's office on that initiative, it was really Von Ton Quinlivan, who was the executive vice chancellor of workforce development for the California community colleges, that made all that happen. I just, as you would say, rode the slipstream and had the good fortune of working with Von. So I really want to make sure, just when people hear that introduction, that I'm very authentic about the role that I played. But going back to your question, so The best way I can describe it is the feeling was always, we're not moving fast enough. Let's go.
Yeah.
And I could never understand why we couldn't get to where I could so clearly see wanting to go, and people said they wanted to go, but not getting there as fast as I knew we would get there. Boy, if we could all just jump in that car and take off, you guys, we'd get there. But
Yeah.
then someone has to pack the bag and someone has to get the gas, all these things. That's always been my biggest challenge. And I never understood, again, until I took this class, why I felt that way.
So knowing that the class was a pivotal moment for you, and that maybe, all of us, I think once we understand ourselves as catalysts, have all these moments we'd go back and change. And so this next question I'll ask, but it's okay if you're also going to say, I would have done knowing now. But if we can take you back into those moments in organizational context when you're like, it's just not moving fast enough. What were some of the things that you did? What were some of the resources that were useful, or what would have been useful, or what would you have done knowing what you know now to have support those hurdles?
So I'll share that I now understand that largely the success that I've had in my professional career has been because of leaders who were, and you can put in any fill in the phrase here, they were your 800-pound gorilla in the corner that allowed you to move fast, or they gave you the air cover so you could get to where you wanted to go. I don't think I really appreciated as much as I do now how invaluable that person was to me, who at that iteration of myself saw the catalyst as being the fuel. Going back, if I would have understood, again, my own articulation of the science of being a catalyst, I would have definitely approached things differently. I just didn't know what I didn't know. But I've always been that way.
I love that as a key takeaway, this idea that, really identify the leaders that I understand explicitly the catalysts are the fuel. Have you lived through environments where that wasn't so? I know you said that you didn't even realize when it was there, but are there moments in your professional past where you didn't have it that you can compare now?
Yes, but I'm going to say with all authenticity is that it wasn't them, it was me. Not because I'm bad or I didn't know what I was doing. We want to very much as humans compartmentalize experiences, but I'm going to go back to the science of it again. The way I've been able to really put this whole thing together is that as a catalyst, if I would have understood that I am not the ignition source, I can be going back to that like fire, triangle, the oxygen, the heat, the fuel. As a catalyst, you can be any of those three things at any given time. And so as you go to approach these problems, challenges, big ideas, big initiatives, to have that moment where you look around your organization, because I consult across multiple organizations across the state of California, and no two are alike, yet they all have the same genetic markers. And so I would need to, the newer me would say, let's look around. Who's my oxygen source? Who's my heat source? Who's my fuel source? Now, how do I, as a catalyst leader, kind of decoupling that idea of catalyst as the ignition source or the oxygen, how do I now take a team and work with them so that together we can make this roaring fire?
I have a quick follow-up on that. I mean, it's so interesting because you're working with organizations and you're working on talent strategies, and having had the experience, I'm wondering, are there ways that you are now helping organizations think about the catalysts who are in their org and what they might do? Because I appreciate the self-awareness of the catalyst is the thing that unlocks us, that helps us manage up to our managers. And having organizations that are creating a sort of catalyst-friendly place that might understand the value of catalysts also is a super accelerant.
To be honest, I just got the hang of this. It was not until I had to prep for this podcast interview that I really sat down and said to myself, okay, let's figure this out. You sense that change internally. You articulate it the best you can with your friends and family in the way that you just express yourself casually. But if I had to explain this to someone like I'm trying to do now, how would I do that? And so this is really my first articulation of what
Yeah.
occurred and how not only do I want to approach things differently, but I would encourage others in an organization to do as well. I mean, a dream, here we go, being catalysts together. And I know you two are this wired this way as well, is wouldn't it be great to have this module around the science of a catalyst, and
Right.
you parachute into an organization, and how do you kind of do triage? Like you look around, and triage is a bit of an extreme word because that implies there's something wrong. But let's just say you kind of do an analysis, you look around, and then you identify those sources. And then
Yeah, I love it.
decide
It's
what your
taking
role is.
It's taking the network map we talk about in class, but
Yes.
expanding it to not just identify the people, but also you're talking about the systemic dynamics
Yes. Yes.
of what's been happening and what's feeding what might be stopping what. I just think it's brilliant.
Yeah. Well,
So
it was your idea first. I just used my own words to make it real, like we all do. We all need our own personal context.
That's right.
So sort of building on that, I mean, for sure. And, you know, Tracy does, you know, a lot of research twice a year minimum. We're coming out with context, catalyst specific context research. I hear the thing about the managers, which we know to be true, but I'm wondering, like, if you had either now or in the past, the ability to sort of obtain any support or resource for yourself to expedite that transformation, you're like, oh, it's going too slow, right? What would that support look like?
That whatever the choice would have been by the organization for some kind of a professional awareness, and I'm choosing the word awareness versus development or learning, and if it could be something or even your approach, do you know how much that would have helped me? Do you know how much easier life would have been for me? I just mean that personally, because as a catalyst, you struggle so much internally, just trying to figure stuff out.
Yeah.
That would have just maybe changed things in so many ways. But look at how joyful and full my professional career has been, and all of the people that I've met. So, you know, you can't go back and change, because now this future would be different. But yes, a resource like that, and maybe even before you're in business or in an organization. When I was a little girl, I have this very vivid memory that now I can connect to the fact that you are a catalyst, like you are a catalyst. This is who you are and how you're wired. So I was standing in line at Disneyland. I think maybe I was 6 or 7. So really excited. We're getting ready to go on, where's the one where Tinkerbell would land at the top?
Matterhorn.
The Matterhorn. That was like the big ride. And I remember being really excited, but I must have said something to my mom about where we were headed next, because I remember she kind of yanked my arm a little bit and she says, why can't you just be happy with where you are? Why are you always so worried about where you're running to next? And so as a kid, I was like, oh, I guess that means, you know, be grateful for your circumstances and
Right.
those things that you articulate as an adult. But this kind of new version of me in my head is, I would have said, because mommy, I'm a catalyst.
Boom.
Right?
I had such a similar conversation with my mom. We've never talked about this, Shan. I wonder if you had one too. But for my mom, it was, Tracy, it never seems like you can just be content. And I was like, content? That feels like it would be an ugly emotion. Like, why would you? Content just means doing nothing, right? Like,
yeah. Or you feel bad because you think, boy, I'm really ungrateful.
Right?
Yeah,
It does
it's
that
Shame on
message.
me.
It's
Shame
an
on me.
interesting line that you talked about there, Amy, the gratefulness. I mean, this is, and it does go back to some of the stuff that we talk about with Catalyst, though. Like, we talk about the art of celebration in the class. For
Yes.
exactly that reason, right? Because it's like we can see this peak, this mountain that's in front of us. We think that's an unobtainable goal, and more often than not, we quickly crush that. But what we see behind that is the next peak of change that we could do. And instead of just taking a breath, and also, by the way, bringing everyone along with us on the celebration tour, we're on to the next thing. And so it's a yes and. It's like, yeah, we don't need to like stop ourselves from the visioning. But I think that moment of celebration, is that something that you've learned to bring into your practice?
Yes. And the best way I can describe it is, know that the feeling you're having now, others won't have for about a year from now.
Well said.
And so don't get frustrated. Don't take your toys and go home, because if you do, if you leave the table, whatever table you're at, you'll no longer be able to have that influence and that engagement. So just rest in the fact that about a year from now, someone will say the exact same thing that you said a year ago.
Yeah.
And most of the other people will be around the table and say, that is a great idea. And inside you're like, but I thought I said that like a year ago.
You're like,
The
look
other
at the
thing-
slide deck.
Right? With all the people that we talked to that I shared with you a year ago. Totally.
Right,
The
but
one final
you're-
piece. Sorry, go ahead.
Sorry,
Amy.
no, but as catalysts, one of the big things that I've learned, and I think I want to take the class again, now understanding the more practical application versus personal, is that as catalysts, we may not articulate ourselves as clearly or communicate as clearly as we think we are.
Yes, mic drop. And therein lies so much of the challenge and frustration that we can cause for ourselves. And I also just wanted to pull out a little thing that you said there, which was, there are different ways for us to potentially have seats at the table. And so if we can do the self-advocation, if we can articulate what the superpowers are, if there's a few people who in the organization can understand that, we might not need to stay in the full-time role. Maybe there's some new ways that we can engage with organizations to keep that energy and change, but also keep us occupied in other areas where we're getting different bumps of energy from celebration of positive impact.
I describe that as I want to run around and build lemonade stands.
I love it.
Let's go. Got more lemonade stands to build.
I want to pick up, you were saying earlier, Amy, as you kind of revisiting your experience of Disneyland, but also that like you can identify moments where people were catalysts. And so knowing that this idea of who you are is newish, are you able to look back on your professional history and see relationships that formed with catalysts? Did that happen organically without even knowing what you were looking for?
Absolutely.
So what was the impact of those, you were doing this really innately, those relationships that you built?
At a gut level, you say, I found someone like me.
Yeah.
And then they have more experience than you. So you think to yourself, I'm going to get to learn from them, which is a challenge because they're moving so fast. You're not too sure what you're learning.
Yeah.
I worked with a leader at one time who is an incredibly dynamic leader. And we would start these phone conversations when I'm driving and I'd have to pull over to the side of the road and I'd be like trying to find paper and pen. I'd be writing everything she was saying so quickly because I knew she was teaching me and eventually I'd get it. But yeah, it's hard. Learning from a catalyst is hard.
Yeah, but you're even making sense of my own professional history. Literally, I'm like, oh my gosh, totally. Like every job in my years at Microsoft that I took because I wanted to go work with a particular leader. And I loved being their second in command.
Yes.
And I knew I was done when I was like, okay, I do feel like the learning has slowed to a significant amount. And I remember being in a career workshop and I was pretty senior at the time. And the person leading it was like, Tracy, tell us how you've guided your career. And I didn't feel like I could say that because it didn't feel like it was strategic enough.
Yes.
But now that I understand myself and understand why that was so motivating, like there is a chapter that can be talked about of the wisdom of going and working for other catalysts and to your point, figuring out how can we learn from them. Right. And I think once we have this awareness, it's easier.
Yep. Agreed.
So with that 2020 hindsight, how would you talk about for other leaders out there, the value of identifying the catalysts in your organization? What does it help in an organizational context for us to find one another?
So I have to ground this again, just in the way I helped myself understand it, is going back to that example of a fire.
Yeah.
If you can look around and say, okay, who's my ignition source? Because it might not always be you. So who's my heat? Who's my ignition source? Who's my lightning? Who's my match? And it might be you and it might not be. And then the second thing you want to look at is then who's my fuel? Right? So who's wood, who's paper? But then the other part is then where's that oxygen?
Yeah.
Who's the oxygen? It might be you, it might not be you. But then the other thing to be aware of, and this is not a good or bad thing, it's both, is when you think of a fire, and let's say it's a campfire, before you leave, what do? You put sand on it to extinguish the fire.
Yeah.
Where's the sand?
Mm.
Sand can be good though too, because just when there's a fire, they build fire breaks. We all see this, hear about it on TV. That stops, that stops the fire from just consuming everything.
Yeah.
And you just have to be so careful being a catalyst that you don't unintendedly consume everything.
Yeah. I love these conversations. As I'm saying, it helps me sense make so much. And bringing that metaphor back is such a gift right now. It's so true that, finding your other people, that if we are a lone flame as a catalyst and you're sitting in an organization, it gives such a powerful visual as to why it's so hard to really effectively create change.
Yes.
But if you can expand that flame around the organization, and then others are catching fire. Right now, I see the adoption curve in my head. That's such a really visceral visual metaphor. That's amazing. And the sand, I love that too. Like, there has to be that moment. We have one of our members of the Catalyst Leadership Trust talks about, what are you going to kill? As you create transformation, you have to be equally ready to say publicly and to act publicly on what has to stop to create space and forward momentum on what is being born. And so I love that. Like, where's the sand? And who has the power to use the sand? And who has the courage to use the sand?
Both.
I just
right.
love it all.
Yeah, definitely.
And the sand for me in the metaphor is also the boss that, we have this sheet that people can download off our website. It's like 101 how to work with a catalyst. It's for the catalyst to engage with their manager, right? But one of the things is, help me watch for burnout. Like, you can be the sand as my leader and just be like, okay, it's time to just, hit that plateau that we were talking about, take a breath. And so I love that too, because I think there's a range, and I agree, Tracy, I've been contextualizing my own history in this conversation. It's like, I definitely, the few people that I had who were like semi-catalysts, on the scale, they understood and they created enough space for me. But, also that important piece would be like, and you don't have to be on fire all the time, Amy. Like, I love that reality.
Be on fire all the time. Yeah. Yeah. And the other part I'll say that I've come to as well is, often as catalysts, if we leave an organization or sharing our story with our friends and family, often it's situated as, well, they just don't get me. It's them. It's not you. And my evolution has been, it's me.
Yeah.
No, guess what, sister? You are the constant in this equation.
That's right.
So figure it out and learn how you can work better with teams. It's not, I don't mean that to be self-deprecating. I think it's just a fact. And
it is a
That
fact.
paradigm shift, you'll be
totally. Because this is the thing. People have heard me tell this story before, but like, I remember where I was sitting, what the weather was, all the things when Tracy started revealing her initial catalyst research to me, because it was like being hit by a bolt of lightning. If we go back to the fire metaphor, and the epiphany was like, honestly, oh, fuck. Like, oh, they didn't want change. I didn't understand that. I didn't understand all the ways that I didn't bring them on the journey, right? And so that realization, and so when we talk about the name of the book, the Move Fast, Break Shit, Burn Out, is our unintentional pattern. And so to your point, it's like, how do we bring the intentionality so that we can bring those other people along? And the other thing we talk about is the emotional labor of being the change agent. Those other people don't have a vested interest in seeing your vision realized yet. And so you have to do the emotional work. It's just not an option otherwise, right?
And you said yet, maybe not at all.
Yeah, totally.
And that is a reality you need to grasp sooner rather than later, because otherwise you keep going in that loop of, what did I do wrong? Why don't they get me? What's wrong with them? It's just like, no, how about it's just not?
Yeah. And the sooner we can realize that, the more. This is when we coach with executives and leaders. It's like, if they want incremental and you want disruptive,
Exactly. And no harm, no foul on either.
100%. Totally.
That's
Yeah.
the thing.
Yeah.
There is no blame. When you truly own being a catalyst, there is no blame.
Yep. All right. So that's a great pivot. For the up and coming catalyst, the one piece of advice or insight that you'd offer up to, catalysts who are in the midst of navigating change in large organizations.
Yeah, it's how many times have we heard this from our family or a really close friend? It's going to be okay. You're okay. Trust me. Trust yourself.
That's beautiful. I don't want to add anything to that. Thank you, Amy.
As
Don't
we
look
wrap
at all
up,
of us. I can feel the energy.
I know. I'm
right?
like, oh, is it going to be okay, Amy? Is it really?
I can even
Still.
feel the energy even over Zoom. Oh, that's
Totally.
Oh, always need to hear that.
Yeah.
As we wrap up today, a favorite question that we have is, do you have a favorite catalyst, alive or dead, and why?
I have an emerging catalyst who is my favorite. And then I have the catalyst that told me I was a catalyst and it was okay. Which one do you want?
Both. You kidding?
So I will name names and proud to do so, but I'll tell you, my favorite catalyst is Von Quinlivan, who is this, see, if you know VTQ, if you know, right? So for those of you who are just cluing in, Von Quinlivan is the CEO of Futuro Health. Start there and then take your own journey and look at what a catalyst has accomplished, but also the journey of transformation of a human who is a catalyst. So there's that. And then
I have to say, we'll put the links to both our podcast with her and her book, because I think her book is also great for catalysts. So thank you.
Yep. And then my second, and I mean this so sincerely and with so much dearness in my heart. So I work with a colleague currently in one of my roles with the CEO Leadership Alliance, and her name is Lori Smith. Okay. Lori is a catalyst. The beauty of Lori is that she may not yet know that a catalyst can play and does play, when they're effective, those three roles of a fire. Lori has a unique ability to be both the ignition source, because her ideas, she's so innovative. She can see down the field, but she also is that fuel source. She understands if there's two catalysts in the room, she can say, guess what? I'm going to be the fuel source here for you. You, ignition, idea person, I'm right here with you, but I'm going to fall in and do fuel. And I'm going to lay the paper, which is the process, so that this idea we birthed together can be successful. She's just amazing. And so I'm hoping she'll be able to take your class. We tried to do it together when I took it, but it just didn't work out. So Lori, you're a catalyst. I know you know it, but I want everybody else to know it too. You're amazing.
Well, we are huge Vaughn fans. So Vaughn, shout out from us for sure, part of our Catalyst Leadership Trust. And Lori, we are gonna become huge fans of yours. I can already feel it. So we're excited to welcome you into the Catalyst community, excited to have you as part of the class, and excited to have you educating us just as Amy has been doing here today. So thank you for sharing both of those people with us, Amy.
Yeah, thanks for listening.
Of course. And thank you for being here. Thank you for all of the wisdom. So just to wrap up, it's ignition, fuel, and what's number 3?
So it's oxygen, heat, and fuel.
Oxygen, heat, and fuel.
Oxygen, heat, and fuel. Yep. Yeah, I have to have.
And sand.
And
that's out. Yeah. Yeah. That's
so
right.
yes, you have to be aware of the sand in the fire.
And we didn't talk about oxygen directly, but to the plateau that Shannon's talking about, right? To the finding your manager that's your air cover, right? That oxygen mask that we need is yet another beautiful way that this perfect little visual is going to help us. Amy, thank you so much for being here with us.
Thank you both. Yeah.
And thank you to our listening audience. If you'd like to learn more about how to accelerate positive change, please go to our website at www.catalystconstellations.com.
And be sure to check out our book that we were talking about, Move Fast, Break Shit, Burnout. If you have other catalysts in your life, hit the share button and send a link their way.
Thanks
Thank you
again.
so much, Amy.
Thank you guys.